Culinary Podcast and Portland Culinary Radio. I'm Stephen Shulman, your host. Today we're doing a special On the Road episode. We are here in Bozeman, Montana. We're going to have a wonderful time in Bozeman. Today we're visiting with Chad Kimm. He and his wife Clarissa are the founders of Ghost Town Coffee Roasters. Did I get that all right?
Yes, that sounds great.
So what I'm really excited about is at the end of this podcast, we're going to drink some of your coffee. And this will be the third time I've had Ghost Town today.
Oh,
so
great.
I did some journaling and some reading this morning at Wild Crumb.
Yes.
Had an amazing orange pecan roll, and they had Ghost Town coffee. And then I had lunch today at the Rendezvous food truck.
Oh, right across the street.
Food carts and food trucks are near and dear to my heart, so I went and had lunch there, and they had your coffee. Almost said on tap, but they had it, available. And it's like, okay, the people love them some Ghost Town around here. It's everywhere. Okay, so we're going to talk about coffee and the coffee business and why you got started and all kinds of fun things. But before we begin, some standard questions on all my podcasts. Where were you born?
I was born in Bozeman, Montana.
No way.
Yep, Bozeman Deaconess Hospital. It was just a smaller thing off of North Wilson Avenue.
Do you know how many people live here that I met that weren't born here?
Almost all of them.
Yeah, you're a rarity. That's funny. Okay, and where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school at Manhattan Christian, just a little ways out in the valley.
That's what, Manhattan, Churchill, and...
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And what's the mascot there?
That was the Eagles.
The Eagles. Okay, nice. Okay, so let's see if I have this right. After high school, you spent some time at college in the upper Midwest, and then you went to college here at Montana State.
Yes, I did. I attended Montana State for a number of years. Started in the pre-med, pre-pharmacy world, and decided after a few years of struggling through that really wasn't my calling, and did a 180-degree turn to the film and TV major.
And that's perfect for what you did professionally before you opened a coffee place.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with it.
So, you opened, you guys opened the Ghost Town, and we'll get to more detail about what you actually opened then. But what's 2006, right?
Yes.
2006, Ghost Town Coffee Roasters opened. But before that, about a year before that, you had spent 6 years living and working in Seattle.
Yes, I worked for REI in Seattle. Worked in the bike world. And the bicycle world is still near and dear to my heart, and we try to incorporate as much biking sponsorship and influence in our current coffee business as well.
Okay, so you go to work at REI working, bicycles, bikes. Did you ride a mountain bike? Did you like mountain bikes?
Yeah, I rode mountain bikes a lot when I was in Bozeman before moving to Seattle. The convenience of road biking in Seattle kind of got me into the road biking world as well, but I'm not opposed to riding anything with any human-powered device with two wheels. So
do you ride a mountain bike now that you're back in Bozeman?
Yes, yeah, mountain bike, and sometimes it's just out of convenience. It's easy to just pop out and go for a quick road ride as well, but like I said, any bike is good with me.
So any favorite trails around here, this neck of the woods that you like?
No, I'm always, mountain biking wise, I love the Bangtail Divide.
Bangtail Divide?
Bangtail Divide.
I've seen that on, written around. Like, that's a cool name.
Yeah.
So where the heck is the Bangtail Divide at?
The Bangtail Divide is in a small mountain range just east of the Bridger Mountains called the Bangtails. So it's a trail that dissects the length of pretty much the entire mountain range. That goes for 22 or 23 miles, I think.
And if you're at the roastery and look out the back, that's the Bridgers, right?
Those are the Bridgers, yeah. You have a great view. We're at the foothills of the Bridgers, basically.
And then the Bangtails are out past those.
Yeah, you can't see them from here, but if you drive up Bridger Canyon Road, you'll see the Bangtails off to your right.
Okay, so and you sponsor some bike stuff even now, don't you, as a company?
Yeah, we have. For years we've had an influence with a local bike team called the Gas Intrinsic Cycling Team, and we try to just be involved in the biking world as we can here. I just spent the weekend at the bike swap. I love the bike swap. We always bring coffee to it, and it's just a great biking community here in Bozeman.
That's fantastic. Okay, so you're in REI for about 6 years, and you say, that's it, we're moving back to Bozeman.
Yeah.
Why that change? Why back to Bozeman?
Well, I met my now wife working for REI in Seattle, Clarissa, and we both just got kind of a little bit tired of Seattle and the extra traffic, and as things were growing there, we just both needed a change, we decided, and it just, for some reason, I suggested Bozeman at one point because I knew it was a good community, and I figured that she would hopefully enjoy it as well, and we spent a couple times visiting, and we both decided that Bozeman would be a good place to move, having known people here and have a little bit of connection with being able to get started rather than just moving to some place where we knew no one.
So now you, throughout the course of your journey, we're kind of glossing over some of it because it doesn't really matter the coffee story, but
Sure.
You've lived in a number of different parts of the country.
Right.
And at least I've had the experience now. You're a little older than you were when you were in college.
Yes.
And what did you tell me? You had the realization that, Bozeman was always home, I just didn't always know it.
Right.
And now Bozeman is home.
Right. Yeah. Bozeman's a comfortable place to live, and it's great. We have a 12-year-old daughter as well, so it's a wonderful place to raise kids and lots of outdoor opportunities, and it's just a safe, good community to
Yeah, it's one of the few places I've traveled where I said, it's actually only one of two places I've ever traveled where, in addition to Portland, I could live here. This is
Right.
one of those two places. So that's high on my list. Like, wow, this is really, I'm really impressed with Bozeman. It's wonderful. Okay, so you got here and you spent about a year working in bikes again.
Yeah.
And then that all fell apart.
Yes.
And where did you take a job at?
I ended up taking a job at Costco. One of my friends that I had met through the bike shop here was one of the managers at Costco, and he said, if you need a new job, it's a good time to get hired at Costco. And it was a good opportunity for me to transition into a place where I knew I'd have an income and a steady job. And Costco was always a good job. I can't complain about it, but it was never really my long-term goal to stay there. And almost immediately after starting at Costco, I started researching, putting a business plan together, and deciding that I wanted to revisit some of the coffee influence that I had picked up in not only Seattle, but honestly probably more Portland than anything, because I had a good friend that lived in Portland, and we would sit at one of the original Stumptown shops in Portland and kind of think about what it would be like to get involved in the coffee world, but nothing ever really came of it personally, either in Portland or Seattle. And I thought,
But years ago, you would sit in Portland at a coffee shop thinking about having a coffee business.
yeah,
Oh, that is phenomenal. I love that story. That's terrific. Okay, so we'll talk about, the coffee in a second, why coffee, but, why would you start a business? That's a whole different thing to be self-employed. Some people wired for it, some people aren't. Was it something I always wanted to do? Was it an itch you needed to scratch? Talk to me about that.
yeah. I guess I've always had kind of an entrepreneurial itch, like you said, having a little bit more control of my destiny in how I created my own schedule. And that's one thing I picked up from my father too. My father was always, he went off on his own he was an electrician, and he worked independently as an electrician his entire professional career pretty much. And I can respect him for doing that. And I guess maybe some of that wore off on me as well.
Awesome. Okay, so I understand the self-employed part.
Mm-hmm.
You had these dreams, way back, be fun to be in the coffee world. But tell me some more about why you chose coffee, because there's some cool things in your background that kind of led to, I'm going to do coffee.
Yeah, well, I think part of it for me is I think it started as I just love the social aspect of coffee, just being able to get people together. But it goes a little deeper for me because I grew up where I grew up was surrounded by agriculture. I didn't specifically grow up on a farm, but I had family and people all around me that were involved in farming. My dad, as an electrician, helped wire all of the different buildings and things on the farm. So I saw agriculture around me and saw the impact of agriculture. And that's the thing that really appeals to me about the coffee world is having now visited coffee farms and seeing the impact of what coffee has on those producers in whatever country it's being grown in is hugely rewarding to me. So just not only seeing how coffee is grown compared to what I learned how wheat and potatoes and all the stuff in Montana is grown is really fascinating to me. So I love the agricultural part and also just how it impacts the people who actually grow it.
I love that. That's fantastic. I wish people could see the smile on your face when you talk about farmers. It's quite awesome. Okay, so where did you? So 2004, you moved to Bozeman. Moved back to Bozeman, roughly, right?
Yeah, 2003, 2004. I worked for about 2003, and then I worked,
2003, and then 2004 you went to work
started at Costco at that point.
And then 2006 you opened Ghost Towns, put a couple of years of work in.
Right.
When you first opened, where was your first space at?
We just had we were strictly wholesale distribution for our coffee at that point. So we just needed a basic, inexpensive warehouse because we couldn't afford too much else. So we just had a little warehouse in the Bruce Industrial Park out in Belgrade.
Just down the road.
Yeah, just down the road, about 6 or 8 miles. It keeps getting closer because the city limits keep expanding. So now it's no longer 10 miles away. It's like 6 miles away now.
You guys just need to incorporate Belgrade.
Yeah,
That's
I guess
it.
so, yeah.
I don't think they'd like that. They like being
probably not,
Belgrade.
yeah.
And so you got some money together, and you got a roaster. You've
Yep.
got some beans. You've got some beans brought in. You're roasting them. You've got warehouse space. How do you go about? What do you do that first year to sell? I mean, how's that happen? What were you doing?
Well, it just, as far as, since we were starting from scratch with this, I just had to go door to door and just convince people that they wanted to sell our coffee. So fortunately, in Bozeman has an extremely strong independent business mentality, which is helpful in our case. And I was able to go to a few of the family-owned grocery stores and getting our coffee on the shelf in those grocery stores, and then just start interviewing and presenting our product to coffee shop owners. Ideally, that was my goal, is to get some of our coffee into coffee shops, because I really wanted our coffee to be prepared and served properly and presented to their customers in a way that was hopefully shed a good light on what we did with our coffee roasting.
So what was that first year like? Your first year in business?
Well, it was stressful to a point where we were wanting to get the business going. Fortunately, I didn't abandon my job at Costco. I worked for Costco for about 4 years as we were getting our coffee roasting business to the point where.
So you worked basically, and this is not 2 jobs for 4 years.
Yes. Yeah.
Or 2.5 jobs, because being self-employed, you put more. I know you put more than 40 hours a week into Ghost Town.
Right.
That hats off to you for doing that, and that's true entrepreneurship, and that is bootstrapping. Most people aren't willing to do that work, and of course they won't have the kind of joy and fulfillment you have now.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And then of course my wife Clarissa was working full time also, so it's kept us going, and to the point where we could just bootstrap our business to the point where it was a big step, actually taking that leap of leaving my job at Costco. I was actually Employee of the year I left Costco.
You went out on top.
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
that. Okay, and then what year did you leave Belgrade, and then where did you go to?
We spent about 3 years in that warehouse in Belgrade and outgrew that pretty quickly and moved into a location here in Bozeman, just off of North Rouse. It's close to our current location as well. And this location was not only bigger, so it offered us more leg room, arm room to stretch out and move around, but it also was a little bit more publicly friendly, so we could kind of start dabbling in inviting people to come in and
have little events and things.
Yeah, little events and things. So it was, but it took a few. Didn't take too. Well, we were in there for probably about 5 years, so it didn't take us too long to outgrow that space as well. And then we realized that the next move we needed to make had to be a little bit more of an adult move. This is more, the space we're in now is a little bit more of a grown-up facility.
This is a beautiful facility. So you've got some production facility, you've got roasting facility, and you've got retail space.
Right.
And you moved that. This opened March 2017?
Yeah, right. We kind of started doing production here in March of 2017, and then we opened our retail cafe kind of loosely in May and June. So another thing that I'd quickly point out is the room we are sitting in currently is our quality control lab training center.
I almost said lab. It feels like a lab in a brewery.
Yeah. It's our barista training. It's kind of become a multi-purpose room because we do some food in here, and we invite different organizations to use it as a meeting space.
Oh, phenomenal.
Well. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so where can people currently buy your stuff? Where are you distributed?
Well, we distribute all. Obviously, it's primarily in the southwest Montana area in Gallatin Valley, and most of the locally owned grocery stores like your Town and Country and Heeb's and the Co-op, and also numerous coffee shops in town. We do keep a up-to-date offer or up-to-date availability list on our website if anybody needs more specifics there.
So Southwest Montana, Helena, Billings, Butte.
Helena, Billings, Butte. Yeah, exactly. We do have a lot of influence in Helena. and we're continuing to spread out from there.
Okay, and then you mentioned your website, and now if some people listening to the Portland Culinary Podcast in Portland, if they want to get some of your coffee, they can just order it and have it shipped right to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have an active website that we're always keeping up to date with all the coffees that we distribute, whether it be our blends or different single origins and things. We always keep that up to date with every coffee that we have.
And you don't yet, like, I have a lot of listeners in Tokyo, for example. You don't get shipped to Tokyo.
No, just some of the logistics and the expense of.
But if I have listeners anywhere else in the United States, they're good. They can order it, and you'll ship it right out to them.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out the extra expense involved in shipping internationally, and it's just at this point it's a little harder to absorb that and figure that out.
Yeah, but people are good in the rest of the United States.
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
I love it. Okay, so tell me where the name came from, Ghost Town.
Well, Ghost Town was a name change we approached about probably 7 or 8 years ago now.
So roughly 2010?
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah. The first name we came up with was Crema Roasting, and I kind of wanted to be a little bit more national sounding business and make it seem more official that way. That's my early entrepreneurial brain thought that would be a good idea. And we also didn't want to. There's a lot of common names in our area that are used very often for different types of businesses that embrace the regional.
A lot of things
names.
named Yellowstone such and such.
Yes, or Bozeman or whatever, Bridger. But it's not that it's a good way. It's useful. I recognize and understand the actual useful. The useful aspect of marketing your business and like that. So we approached it at first I thought it would just be a good idea to just name it after some random ghost town in Montana. So ghost towns it's a little bit personal for me because as growing up here, we did a lot of camping with the family, and it was nice to be able to explore in ghost towns, and so I've always loved ghost towns.
So what's one of the ones that you explored as a kid?
Oh, we went to there's some more well-known ones like Bannock, and of course there's like Virginia City is actually people live in Virginia City. It's still a ghost town, and
it's a ghost town and people live in it.
Yeah, there's some inhabited ghost towns. Ironically, Virginia City is still where the county courthouse is for that particular county it's in. So, but it's so
if someone comes to Bozeman and they're checking out all the stuff and they want to go to what's a ghost town nearby here? Is there any within about an hour drive?
There's several around here actually. We one thing I could mention is we have a fantastic mural hanging on our wall now that was painted by a local artist, Jonathan Rainey, who spent almost a year putting this painting together of the Castle Town ghost town just north of Livingston near White Sulphur Springs.
About how far away is that a drive?
No, it's probably about an hour from Bozeman.
Okay,
so you can drive right past Ghost Town Coffee Roasters up Bridger Canyon and have a quick grab something to eat and drink on your way and head up to Castletown to visit. So
that's fantastic. Okay, so we're going to come back to the name in a second, but
sure.
I wanted to explore some of this interest in me. So why did you abandon the name Crema Roasting?
Well, I think part of it was it just became I may have been a little oversensitive with it, but I saw many other coffee companies in the country that had some sort of crema reference in their name, and I didn't want to just be another one of those. So I also wanted to it softened a little bit with the fact that I knew that marketing and actually embracing our regional character a bit was useful for naming it. So Ghost Town, ghost towns aren't specific to Montana, but there are a ton of ghost towns in Montana. So it's not like it's a unfamiliar thing in this area. So it's regionally appropriate.
Well, I got to applaud your entrepreneurial willingness to pivot and to make a name change. And I have friends that have done that with their businesses, in cases where they needed to, in my opinion, and it actually helped them. And I meet entrepreneurs all the time, particularly in the culinary world, where their name is terrible.
Right.
It's just awful, and I don't want to hurt their hearts, but you got to. And they won't do it, and then they end up out of business. And having a good name is so important. And it's one of the things I teach people. If you're going to build a brand, you got to have a good name. You have to.
Yeah.
And I love Ghost Town Roasting. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So near and dear to your heart, You liked ghost towns. You thought, okay, I'm gonna name it after a ghost town, and you sent an email off.
Yeah, well, I have my friend and happens to be brother-in-law as well. He was.
Andy's your friend.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
can
my
you
friend,
can you
too.
be friends
Yeah.
with in-laws? Does
Yeah,
that work?
I think so. But he was always a good person to bounce things off of if I had some sort of idea as we were growing our business, and I sent him a full list of like all the ghost towns in Montana. I said, pick a few of these ghost towns that sound like it'd be a cool name to rename our business after. And before he didn't even look at the list, he actually just immediately emailed me back and said, "Well, how about just Ghost Town?" So it took me about an hour to let it soak in and start thinking of all the things we could do with it. By the end of that afternoon, I had registered 3 different URLs.
Oh, I love it. Love it when people buy domains. I advocate buying domains.
And we've been it's been kind of fun because we feature, although it's kind of taken a bit of a hiatus with our featuring our ghost town on our website every month. We got kind of busy this past year, so I'm about ready to get back into featuring a new ghost town on our website each month as well. So.
Oh, that's fun. That's fantastic. I love the name. I think it's romantic and enchanting and evocative. I applaud the willingness to do a change.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into some coffee.
Yes.
A friend of mine has an incredible palate. He lives here in Bozeman. I'm saying, hey, I'm coming. I'm gonna do some podcasts. Want to talk to some people. I think I might do some cases. Oh, you got to go to Ghost Town Coffee. I said, well, why? He says, man, their coffee tastes the best, and his palate is off the chart. Huge respect. So what is it? What is it about how you do coffee that leads him to say that your stuff tastes the best? Because he's not kidding. I mean, when he says something's good, it is amazing.
Right. Well, we certainly appreciate that, and would like to thank your friend for the positive review.
I'm happy to take him home a bag of coffee.
Yeah,
he would like that.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we start by sourcing very high quality coffees, and we pay attention to each variety as we roast it. So just starting with great quality coffee through importers and farmers that we know personally is the good place to start.
All right. And I suspect you bring in interesting varieties.
Yeah, we bring in interesting varieties from unique farms, small little micro lots that might be from one specific farmer. Like we work directly with a farmer in Honduras. This will be our 3rd year now, Irma Landaverde, wonderful woman I met a couple years ago. We also have good relationships with a couple different farmers and producers in El Salvador. Emilio Lopez, we're getting a bunch of new coffee from his farm El Manzano again this year. We're excited about that.
So it's funny. I wanted to ask you, where are some of the places you bring coffee from? And rather than, you beat me to the punch, but B, rather than name places, you just go, Honduras and, what's the other country you just mentioned?
El Salvador.
El Salvador.
Yep.
Okay, I had it right. So you didn't just say Honduras and El Salvador, but you're like Emilio and Irma.
Yes.
I love that. That you really do give a darn about farmers.
Yeah, and we had a great opportunity this past year, or this season also, is to bring in a coffee from a co-op in Rwanda called the Sholi Co-op. Our importer brought it in, and just a small lot of it, and they mentioned that this co-op had never imported coffee into the United States before. This is the very first shipment they had ever shipped. And we ended up buying not quite the entire lot, but probably 3/4 of it. And we were the first roasters in the country to actually roast this particular coffee, which was kind of exciting. And I did have the opportunity to meet the producer when I was at the coffee trade show in Seattle a few weeks ago as well. Meet Amable, the producer. I've got a great picture of he and I, and we talked for a good 30 or 40 minutes about just things in Rwanda, and it's really rewarding to see the impact. And he was so grateful. The people from Africa in particular are just so amazingly grateful and love to present their coffee. In countries like Rwanda is very important because it pretty much keeps the country going. Coffee exports is what is the main contributor to Rwanda staying
viable as a country.
Viable, yeah.
I wish people could see just the enthusiasm and joy in your face when you're talking about these farmers and how for you it's not just it's you get great beans, but you're actually making a difference in the lives of a local farmer.
Absolutely, yeah. We see anytime if anybody ever visits the coffee farms and co-ops and how these the community is affected by the coffee sales, and it affects everything in their lives. It's really extremely rewarding.
Okay, how important is it to roast wisely?
Well, when we roast, we take each and every variety we have and try to do what we feel is the best thing for that particular coffee. It's very subjective, obviously. Everybody's going to have a different interpretation about what could potentially be the best for that coffee. But
you're at least taking the time to ask the questions and think about it and say, we're going to, cookies cook different amounts in the oven.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And you're going to make sure this is what this particular bean needs.
Yeah, and I almost feel like in a way we are stewards of this product because we see where it comes from. We see how much pride the producers take in raising and growing and preparing it for export, and we want to take that and continue that respect of that particular coffee and prepare it the best we can, and then in turn be able to prepare it to drink in our facility or our customers' facilities and present it to customers in the best possible way that coffee can actually be represented.
For you, this is like a big responsibility. You take this serious.
Yeah, for sure. For us, it's by far not. It goes well beyond just a simple commodity for us. We love the coffee business, and that's what we're here to represent.
A word that comes to mind from one of my previous careers, previous vocations. It's almost like this is like your calling.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, just the way you talk about it is the way some people I know talk about their calling. It's beautiful. I love it. Yeah. Okay, speaking of things near and dear to your heart, talk to me about single origin coffee. First, what the heck is it? For those that don't know, what is single origin coffee?
Well, if you were to, we call it single origin, and it's kind of widely.
It's a coffee thing.
Yeah, it's in the coffee world. It's becoming more. A lot of people would recognize what we were talking about there, but for those who don't,
a single origin. The coffee geeks will get it. Some coffee fans will, but I like to explain things for people.
Absolutely, yeah, certainly. So basically, if we were to go back and source the origin of that coffee, a lot of times we obviously know what country it came from, and if we can continue to drill further back and find the co-op that it potentially came from, or the coffee mill that it was milled at, and then ideally we would really like to know the actual coffee farmer that actually produced it as well. Most coffee farmers are not big enough in volume that we can get. They have to combine it with the rest of coffee from other farmers in the community.
So get a shipment big enough to send to the United States.
Right, yeah. Yep. So a single origin coffee would be one from a specific country, farm, or region farmer. And if we can continue to get a single farmer origin would even be the best, but that can't always happen necessarily.
And you love that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's no question.
Yeah, for you, I can just imagine you getting the joy. You've identified a farmer, and now you're going to support them.
Right, and that's how we go about naming our coffee too. If we have a single origin coffee we're trying to feature, if we can go all the way back and name the actual farmer who produced that coffee, that is what we name the coffee after.
That's fantastic. So a little bit more of just coffee, basics for some people. For other people, they've never heard. There's two different species of coffee, right?
Two primary species, yeah, Arabica and Robusta.
And Robusta is, generally, stereotypically, cheaper quality, cheaper price. So if I go to get a cup of coffee in the middle of the night, all night, gas station, middle of nowhere, it's probably Robusta beans.
Yeah, there is that possibility, certainly. Yeah, it's just grown at lower elevation, grows more prolifically. So you can get more crops every year. Most Arabica is only harvested once a year, so it's a little more of a premium. And it's grown at much higher elevation as well. Arabica is grown at higher elevation, which the higher the elevation, typically the more flavorful and quality the coffee is, because it stresses the coffee as it's growing, and that stress creates better coffee.
And specialty coffee is generally Arabica, and generally 80 points on a scale of 1 to 100 or higher.
Yeah, there's a reasonably well-accepted grading scale for coffee from a 1 to 100, and anything anything that's considered specialty grade, particularly in the Arabica world, is 80 points and above. That's not to say that there's certain Robustas that might get in that 80-point range, but even the best quality Robustas are not going to compete with the even kind of mid-level specialty grade Arabicas.
Okay, how do you drink your coffee?
Well, personally, because I really like to explore all the different flavors of the different farmers. I want to know why Irma's coffee is tasting like it does this year versus the coffee from Amiable in Rwanda. So I just like a basic pour-over drip coffee. We also do, so that's the way I like my coffee.
Yeah, so I do a French press at home.
Yep.
So that's an acceptable method. That's okay to do French
certainly,
press?
yeah. French press is great because just by default, most people are heating their water properly when they're creating a French press, and just having the proper temperature water, which is around 200 degrees Fahrenheit, is great for extracting all the flavors out of coffee. So, but just by default, you typically just throw your kettle on the stove and you have water that's at or near the 200 degree mark when you're done boiling it on your stove.
I love it. That's fantastic. Okay, and what temperature does water boil here in Bozeman?
Bozeman is at about almost 4,900 feet above sea level, so our water boils here at about 203.
So you're almost a mile-high city.
Yeah, not quite as high as Denver.
But close.
Yeah, I was just in West Yellowstone doing some work there a couple days ago, and they're at 6,600.
Wow.
And their water boils at 199.9. I discovered while I was there.
So how do you get it? You have to get it hotter than boiling to be 200 degrees if you're in West Yellowstone.
Yeah, it's exactly by 0.1 degree Fahrenheit.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so if someone wants to open, a lot of people are opening coffee businesses. Lots and lots of people do it. If someone wants to open a coffee business, what advice would you give them?
Well, I would say you want to first do it. There's so much coffee out there. For us, it is a passion for the coffee community, whether it be the growers on the producing end or the community of people we have come and sit and enjoy a conversation in our coffee shop. For us, it's a combination of respecting the product that we're selling and loving it and having a passion for it, and then also the people and the communities that it affects as much as it does, and dramatically in a lot of cases. If you're just simply wanting to open a coffee business as a means to an end for financial reasons, there's so much competition out there. It's hard for me, I guess it would be hard to imagine doing that just simply as a way to earn an income.
So if you don't have passion about it, don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's brilliant for anything you do in life, but particularly for starting a business, particularly for a precious item like coffee. And I say coffee's precious because if you don't tend to it, bad things happen.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to shepherd the coffee.
Yes, you do.
You actually really do.
Yeah.
Okay. What I love is your whole approach. I can just see it. I bet you anything. You have two fan bases. You have just people that like ghost town and drink some coffee and love it, and then I bet you have a community of those coffee geeks that know coffee and dearly probably love the approach you take.
Yes. Yeah, and that's why we in a way we almost have two separate lines of coffee. We learned pretty early on that when we went to our grocery stores, the grocery stores just like, and they just like the same selection, and we also have customers that just like the same coffee. We love those customers. I have no problem with a customer who they don't care why this Rwanda coffee tastes different than the El Salvador.
I just want a cup of coffee in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
I want a good cup of coffee in the morning. Yeah. I'm happy with that.
And I have no problem. We love those customers that are just the consistent creatures of habit that come in and grab that same bag of whatever we have on the shelf week after week. And so we want to make sure we're maintaining good quality coffee and different varieties with our blends, different options with our blends. And then we have those coffee geeks, like you said. We have the people who really want to experience the difference, why the Ethiopia tastes different than the El Salvador or whatever it is. So, and we also learned that with our coffee shop accounts. A lot of our coffee shops wanted something different than what they could go across the street at the grocery store. So, and they're taking that coffee and serving it to their customers. And they want it to be unique, and they can tell the story behind the coffee. And we try to provide our wholesale customers enough information so they can actually go and be a good steward and explain that coffee as well.
Yeah, the beer buyer at Bailey's, I did a Portland Beer Podcast episode with him, and it was kind of fascinating. You know, what beer does he buy? And, you know, and he has a terrible job. He has to taste 40 or 50 beers a week. It's just so awful.
Yeah.
And so, for example, when it comes to an IPA, he wants a good IPA that tastes good.
Yep.
That has a good name. The name of the IPA has to be interesting. And then the IPA needs to have a good story.
Right.
And if he has all three, then he'll buy it because he could get a gazillion IPAs. Right. But the one with the tastes good, really good IPA with a good name and a really good story, that's the one that he picks
the one
up.
That's unique, right?
Yeah, and people, it's a story-centric branding. People want stories these days. Mm-hmm. I always loved a good story. Probably I'm a culinary storyteller.
Right.
Okay, so any hopes and dreams for the future? You've got this really cool, space that's both retail and wholesale. Anything, 10 years down the road, what might we think about?
Well, our hope is to continue to grow more retail locations because it's the one thing that's kind of unique about coffee is that it's a little different. I always use it in the micro brewing beer world. It's a good analogy comparing it to that is that the craft brewer can do all these wonderful things creating this great craft brew, and the preparation and ultimate serving of that beverage is much simpler than coffee. It's just a matter of pulling on a tap handle or popping the top off of a bottle, and you can serve basically the product that the craft master brewer intended you to drink. With coffee, that final step of preparation plays a huge role.
There's room for error.
There's a huge room for error. All the wonderful things that happened up to that point can be completely lost if somebody isn't trained properly and it's not served properly to that customer that's going to ultimately drink it. So as far as goals for the future...
What kind of machines, by the way, you use here?
Right now we have a La Marzocco Strata.
Oh my, isn't that like the Cadillac of
It's definitely one of the nicer machines you can buy in the world on our coffee bar. We also have a Curtis Seraphim, which is a kind of an automated pour-over system that kind of is able to recreate. Takes maybe a little bit of the romance out of the pour-over slow bar thing that a lot of specialty coffee shops have.
And you do that here too.
We do, yeah.
I can get either the Curtis Seraph?
Curtis is the main company, and Seraphim is the model that we're talking about.
Oh, Seraphim. So it's an angelic cup of coffee.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
So I can get that, or I can get a traditional pour over.
Right. Yeah, and any espresso drink or whatever we have here. So one thing we like about the Curtis is that it doesn't, for us, it still allows us to interact and talk to you, like you mentioned the story behind that's the beauty of having a pour over is you not only get a really beautiful cup of coffee, but you also can hear about the story about why this coffee is what it is and where it came from. And the Seraphim allows us to recreate an exact profile of that coffee each and every time, and we can still interact with you as the customer saying, well, this coffee came from this wonderful co-op in Rwanda that we actually are featuring right now. So for us, it's just as important to tell that story as it is to have a barista hand pouring water over top of the coffee grounds.
And for those that know, you could say, in this particular, the Seraphim, it's 6 wings, not 2.
Right, right.
Okay, so hopes and dreams.
Well, the hopes and dreams, we want to basically we want to continue to create more retail locations to around, whether it be Bozeman or Montana or anywhere in the country for that
So you're
matter.
not opposed to coming to Portland?
No, I would say not. I think Portland could probably use a nice ghost town coffee.
Particularly because you would sit at a coffee shop in Portland years ago with your friend and think about being in the coffee business. What a fantastic story that would be.
Truly come full circle.
Oh, that would be awesome. I want to be there when that happens. That would be, and we love good coffee in Portland.
We'll start scouting some real estate in Portland.
Yeah, that's not cheap there.
Yeah.
All right, let's drink some coffee, shall we?
I think we should.
All right, so this is the Rwanda Sholi.
Yeah, the Rwanda Sholi Co-op.
Okay, and you've got 2 different preparations. Tell me about those.
Well, oftentimes we will take normally this coffee would just be intended just for your standard drip pour over type coffee, but we also like to feature some of these same coffees as an espresso as well. So we take the same coffee and prepare it as an espresso, and it's nice. It's really interesting to be able to experience the difference between the same coffee being prepared in 2 pretty dramatically different ways. All
right, so which one should we start with? What do you suggest?
I would say start with the pour over. version, because if once you start drinking the more concentrated espresso, it tends to coat the palate, coat the tongue, and you sort of lose a little bit of the flavor for the other one. So.
Okay, I'll drink the pour over, and you tell us what we're tasting.
Well, this one,
That's just a good cup of coffee.
yeah, this one it's fairly freshly roasted, so it's a little bit of certain characteristics revolving around that. But it's just a really nice floral. This is a washed coffee from Africa. That's a certain processing that will tend to give you a certain nice acidic brightness. The coffee from Rwanda, this one is not super acidic and bright. It's actually a really nice balance of sweetness and just has that essential, quintessential African sort of brightness to it. But we love this coffee just because of the balance of it.
Yeah, I could just drink this. I don't need cream. I don't need sugar. Just a really nice cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what am I going to taste different in the espresso version?
Well, the espresso is going to just be a more concentrated version. Especially being as an espresso, it'll bring out some more of that brightness, more lemony citrus and
Almost like an orange zest.
right. Yeah. Right. Yep.
Yeah, it's like the same thing, just more intense.
Right. Yep. Yeah. There's definitely a nice orange citrus brightness to it.
Okay, and then are you planning to continue to pick up some coffee from the Shirley Co-op?
We are actually. I had a nice thing about the co-op there is I had an opportunity to meet with with one of the main producers from the Shirley Co-op, and we've already started talking with our importer that helped bring this in about what we will be getting from them next year. We've been bringing in coffees from Rwanda for years, but just with the more personal relationship we've created now with this co-op, I believe that we will continue with them and see the benefit of what's happening more directly that way.
Well, and maybe sometime the next 2 or 3 years, you and 10 or 15 of your fans can go on a trip to Rwanda
Absolutely.
to see the coffee.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it's a common thing that I'm always looking out to do, and there's oftentimes our importers will help host trips to these locations, and our main representative that helped bring this coffee in through our importer in Seattle, Atlas Coffee Roasters, is going on a trip very soon, actually, to Rwanda and Burundi, and unfortunately this year it just didn't work out for us.
Well, but hopefully in the future, not only can you go, but maybe you can take some of your fans with you, because that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, certainly.
There's
Absolutely.
there's a coffee roaster in Portland that does that a couple times a year. They will go and they
host,
people can sign up and buy their tickets and go with them and check out the farm and the whole experience.
That's a fantastic idea.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
like
just
that.
as we close, 3 more of your coffees that are around a lot. So talk to me about Dawn.
Well, Dawn was created as basically our version of like a common breakfast blend. Dawn falls into that category of a coffee that we want to maintain consistency and quality for year after year, and to have that creature of habit, wonderful customer of ours just grab that coffee each and every time. It's a little bit more medium dark roasted, fills a need for somebody who just wants that little bit darker roasted coffee. And
Okay, and this one caught my eye. A bourbon barrel. I saw it. I love a bourbon barrel aged beer. I read the back, and Willie's Distillery in Ennis, Montana. I will see. Monday night I was at Bar 9, and I had some Willie's whiskey.
Right. Yep.
So talk to me about this. This is kind of fascinating.
Well, that goes back several years, actually. We started barrel conditioning coffee. So we put green raw coffee in an actual whiskey barrel that we keep. We don't soak it in actual whiskey, but in between conditioning the coffee, we actually fill it with inexpensive whiskey to keep the barrel wet and keep the stays all together. So
right.
Obviously, if anybody knows about whiskey barrels and the fact if you let them dry out, they fall apart. So we keep this barrel wet. We drain the whiskey out and then put green coffee in it for X amount of time, and we monitor the moisture content that absorbs into the green coffee. The green coffee absorbs probably 5 or 6% moisture content from its original state before we put it in there, and then we know it's ready to pull out, and then we just roast it from there.
That's fantastic. Here's a crazy. You could have Willie's give some of their bourbon barrels they're done with to a brewery.
Yes. Yep.
You can take your bourbon barrel conditioned coffee beans, give it to the brewery.
Right.
They can make a coffee beer and then barrel age it in one of Willie's bourbon barrels.
Yes, yeah, there we go.
There's things like that been done in Portland, and it's just phenomenal. It's,
Right.
it's very meta. It's like, okay, all of that, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, and this last one we want to mention, this El Salvador El Manzano.
El Manzano, yes.
That's the name of the farm.
That's the name of the farm, yes, yeah.
And Emilio Lopez.
Emilio Lopez is a great coffee person that we've known for many years. He's highly involved in the trade organizations that we've been a part of also for several years, and we've been buying coffee directly from El Manzano for a couple of years now, and we're continuing that relationship again this year, and we're excited to continue to get more coffee directly from Emilio's farm and all the great people that work at El Manzano.
And the tasting notes, it sounds amazing. Hazelnut, nougat, lemongrass, and brown sugar.
Yeah.
This sounds like fantastic coffee.
Yeah, El Salvador has been good. They actually have farmers and producers like El Emilio have really gone a long way to improve the overall quality of coffee in El Salvador.
That's fantastic. Well, it's been a delight being here. I love your logo. I love the lamp. It's just so, I had lamps like this growing up. I didn't have electricity the first 10 years. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Southern California. Hard to do, but we did it.
Yeah,
when we
off the grid, yeah.
Yeah, we literally had, just electricity hadn't come through there yet.
Oh, okay.
And we had literally had lamps like this, and
Right.
just so cool. I love your story. I love your passion for coffee and the people you serve, and you are very much a good shepherd. You steward the product well, to use your words.
Oh, thank you.
And it's just, Chad, it's been a delight being here. I wish you all the best, and I can't wait for you to open a Portland outlet. That would be
All right,
fantastic.
we will continue to keep our eye on that.
All right, cheers, everyone.